people of the internet, it is day 12 of Red Instead April 2020 Autism Acceptance Month thing. And we're talking about migraines. I probably disappeared out of the video, I'm sorry. So, well, what inspired this video is that in 4 years, basically, of reading about autism, I have not seen migraines and autism discussed once. And in fact, it took a YouTube video by another disability creator to even make me realize that I have migraines, like quite a lot. So, you know, I think it's kind of, and then I happened to Google or to search on the internet. I did not use Google. Sorry, YouTube. And I realized that there are actually studies about this. Sometimes just studies saying, can autistic people even experience headaches? Which I think we all know that kind of research. But anyway, so let me first of all explain for those who don't know what exactly is a migraine. According to the NHS, who I have looked whose website I've looked at in order to make sure that this information is more or less correct, since I am putting it online, and there is more sources also to the other things that I'm talking about in the description box thingy below if you want to check that out or fact check me. So what's a migraine? According to the NHS, it is moderate to severe headache felt as throbbing pain on one side of the head, and people who experience migraines usually begin to experience them in early adulthood, although abdominal migraine, which is a migraine that occurs in the stomach and not the head, are slightly more common in children. And migraines include more than just a headache, basically. They usually have more symptoms than just headaches. They may occur with nausea and what else? And sometimes heightened anxiety or specific muscle pain or blurry vision, and I mean all sorts of other metaphorically not fun things. And they also typically may include, although I think many do, I'm not sure, an aura, which is basically some time before and after the migraine in which specific symptoms occur, such as like flashing lights in the vision, which are not real. They're just your brain, like the thing in your brain that I should have looked this up more. Anyway, the thing in your brain that, you know, interprets the stuff from your eyes, sort of adds to them too. Or like similar sort of visual disturbances like that, like there can also be dark, for example. For me, there's just dark points floating around, which, I mean, I wonder why I never noticed that before. I just ignored that for some reason. Anyway, and again, anxiety, nausea, and all sorts of fun, not fun things. And migraines are thought to be a result of temporary changes in the chemicals, nerves, and blood vessels in the brain. And possibly also genetics play a role. Yeah. And migraines can often be sort of associated with specific triggers, like specific sensory experiences, for example, light or sound, stress, tiredness, specific food triggers, like caffeine can be a trigger for some people, or I think processed meats and all sorts of things, basically. And well, people who experience migraines in general typically have higher levels of sensory hyperactivity and anxiety. Now, what exactly does that remind us of? Well, since you know the title, autism, obviously, which also usually comes or often comes with sensory hyperactivity and anxiety. So, that should make one think, I guess. And actually there is one study, which again is down below in the comments, that actually cites a 61% prevalence of migraines in autistic people, although they have a very small sample size and all of them are children. I think the oldest ones are 16, which is technically not a child, but also technically yes. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, there seems to be more autistic people having migraines than non-autistic people having migraines. Which, makes it kind of weird that no one seems to be talking about it. But on the other hand, it is kind of logical, because, if you have more sensory input, then there's more sensory input that can possibly, extreme sensory input that can possibly trigger a migraine. So, and then there's also very interesting studies, but very few, and then they get too technical for me to understand because I am not the medical professional, that suggest that actually many of the sort of, gastrointestinal, stomach problems that autistic people have might actually be results of abdominal migraines, which again are migraines that, happen in your stomach. So there seems to be a link, and I'd be very interested to see if any other autistic people who might be watching, or who the people might be watching know, also experience migraines of any sort, or have to this video phone on. That might be, though I'm not sure how well I explain migraines. Anyway, I did want to contribute my experience, which I guess I'm doing right now. To me, it's sort of, well, the first problem I think in even just recognizing whether you have migraines or not is that, it's kind of difficult as an autistic people and some person sometimes to know what is normal and what's not normal. So it's not as easy to identify when there's something happening that shouldn't, like pain. And in a way I feel like there is in a way where you sort of not necessarily lacking. Can you be quiet? I can't think with you screaming. Where was I? It's not necessarily that I sort of I'm not very sensitive to pain, but I can ignore it really well, because I think that's just like a learned trait, learned skill that, you know, if a lot of things are painful, you need to really learn to ignore them so that you can do the things that are required of you. Required of you. Which can make it a little bit hard to even, you know, identify a thing. And then sort of migraines can also sometimes look a little bit similar to meltdowns, and it's sort of meltdown and anxiety or panic attacks and migraine things can sort of also merge into one thing that is then difficult to tell apart, because they're all somehow maybe a little bit similar. And because there's so much more, you know, heightened sensitivity to sensory experiences, the triggers can be a lot more subtle and sort of hard to identify. Like for me, the main trigger for my migraines is daylight, and well, you know, that happens a lot. So basically for a long time I didn't really figure out that that was what I had, because I always had a migraine, because the minute that one might sort of, you know, be disappearing, there was another one because there was daylight again. So then it sort of became this sort of endless circle, and I couldn't really identify, like, okay, this happens and then this happens and then this happens. Like, sort of, even though technically my migraines, like, if they happen on their own, they're like very standard, you know, aura, migraine, aura. But all of that was so confused because the triggers were constantly happening that I just couldn't identify that at all. And also I did have sort of, when I was a lot younger, I did have this sort of visual aura symptoms, and I remember being nauseous a lot for, like, in my teens or something. And I actually complained about the visual auras to my parents. I remember I describing them as black suns, that I kept seeing black suns, because for me mostly it's just like black little points swimming around. And well, basically my parents, like, they did take me serious, and they took me to like an eye doctor person who like measured how good I could see, but everything that was fine. And so they were like, what are you talking about? You're fine. Go away, you're healthy. And so I just started ignoring that because, well, it got kind of misinterpreted and then dismissed, which I think is something that happens a lot if you're autistic, that just, especially when things that you experience when you're younger, because you can't really articulate them very well, or even now I sometimes find that very difficult. So then they get misinterpreted or not taken seriously because you can't articulate them well, and so then they just get ignored, or you get told the wrong information about them and you start ignoring them yourself. And then suddenly you're standing in front of a heap of symptoms and you have no idea what is what. Which I still sort of is the case for me, and I'm still trying to tell that all apart. But yeah, that's my sort of experience. I'd love to hear other people's experience. And I hope that you found this video informative. And if you did, I'd appreciate if you would, give it a thumbs up. And if you are not already subscribed and would like to see more videos like this, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe. And I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.